He believes that by working an inside-outside strategy, we can not only bring back the troops, we can redirect military spending to meet human needs, we can end world hunger, we can house, and we can get about the important work of healthcare for all. He's led that fight. I just want to bring him on so you can welcome him as John makes his way on. Please welcome Congressman Jim McGovern. Thank you.
Jim McGovern, have a microphone. After he was chief of staff, he got elected to Congress, and since coming to Congress, there is no one who has done, there are many people who've done great work, and Jim would always share the credit with others, but there's nobody who's done the hard, steady work on issues of hunger and poverty in the United States and abroad. And that hard, steady work involves putting riders on bills and amendments and struggling to forge alliances with Republicans and conservatives. And I want to start out, we're at a political convention. How difficult is it to put the issues of the poorest among us and those who, because of their poverty, often have the least power into the middle of a political discourse and to try and bring them to the front? How much resistance is to that, and what do you do? How do we do that?
Part of the problem over the last 8 years in particular is that it has become unfashionable in Washington to care about the poor and to care about those who are falling through the cracks. The Republicans have been very, very good, I think, and very effective at demonizing people who are stuck in poverty. And their response has been, you know, if you want to get out of poverty, just, you know, pick yourself up and, you know, do it on your own, and that's the way it's supposed to be. There has been a disdain for government that, quite frankly, has resulted in inaction. The bottom line is there's not a lobby. You know, you don't get PAC checks for fighting for poor people. When you talk about expansion of food stamps, there's not a lobbyist that wants to throw a big party for you and say, okay, let's all provide your money for your election because you want to make sure people are fed in this country. I'm the co-chair of the House Hunger Caucus. I just came from the food bank of the Rockies. You know what? There is not a single community in the United States of America, not a single city or town, that is hunger-free. I mean, I don't care what the city is. There are over 30 million Americans who are hungry. I mean, that is unconscionable. It is shameful. Every member of Congress, you should be ashamed of the fact that that is a reality here. And I think part of what this gathering here in Denver is all about, and what hopefully this convention is about, and the reason why we're talking about electing progressive candidates, is we want to change the mindset in Washington. You know, we want to make sure that we have people that get elected who believe that their priority is to take on some of these issues, and that the government is part of the solution. I had a reporter earlier say, I was at this hunger event, he said, how do you solve hunger? And I gave him a few things that government should do. He goes, oh, that's just, you're just advocating big government solutions. You know what? I am. Hunger is a big problem, and we need a big solution. We're a big country. We need a big government, to help deal with some of the concerns. I mean, we got to get over that. But I think your presence here is going to help focus a lot of us and focus the people who are in that Pepsi Center on some of these issues.
Let me keep on the Congressman for 1 second, then I'm going to go over to Carmen. Congressman, the platform that the party put together and passed with 15 minutes of notice the other night has mention of some poverty issues in that. But I want you to burrow into your own party and say, how should Democrats tactically, how should they be talking about poverty to the whole of the country? What ought the message be? And I know for you there is the moral message, and that may be the core of it. But are there other elements as well?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we need to try to do I mean, at least the politicians need to try to do, and all of us do. We need to start talking about this country, and the problems that we face, as something that we all have a responsibility to solve. We're all in this together. I mean, we need to worry about the person who lives next door, across the street, upstairs or downstairs or over the back fence. So, I mean, there is such a thing as the common good. I don't think it is politically damaging, to get out there and to say, look, we have we're a family, and when there are people in your family who are hurting, you help them. I mean, it's nothing, I don't know how that will lower anybody's poll numbers. When I talk to people about hunger, usually they get it. I mean, when you tell people the truth, I mean, first of all, not everybody's aware of the extent of some of the problems out there. You got to educate people. You got to talk about it. Secondly, when you educate them, the tendency is they want to do something about it. I think the people in this country are good. I think we sell the American people short when we think that taking on issues of hunger and poverty are somehow detrimental. I'm going to tell you one thing about that platform that I'm proud of. Barbara Lee and myself and Sam Farr of California got some language in that platform, strong language on ending the war in Iraq and on being against torture, and so that's something good in that platform. But look, platforms are just words. What's going to matter is action. And I think if we can win enough seats in the House and we get a working majority in the Senate, you need 60 votes in the Senate to have lunch. They can't do anything without 60 votes. And a Democratic president who gets it. I think we can be on the edge of an era in this country of bold and dramatic change equal to the Great Society and the New Deal. So, we're going to have people, I think, that are with the mindset to do big things. Ending poverty is not a tiny matter. It's a big thing. Universal health care is a big thing. Making sure that we eliminate hunger in this country is a big thing. These are big, big things. They require big solutions, not little baby steps, but big solutions, big, bold, dramatic change. And I think that's what our goal is here. That's what our goal is here.
Carmen Rhodes. Big dramatic change, absolutely. You work with a lot of people who want the big dramatic change of a job, a big dramatic change of ability to make a mortgage payment. Within that context of those big dramatic changes, what would you tell the Democratic Party to be talking about at this convention and in the weeks and months ahead if it wants to connect with the people who you work with so often, who are on the margins?
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here, and I want to welcome you all to Denver, Colorado, my home city, so thank you for being here. I think that what we need to be talking about is the connection between access to good-paying jobs and people who are poor and people who are living in the middle class trying to make it and who are feeling the squeeze from the top all the way down. We are not, often when we talk about poverty, we are not connecting it to lack of access to good-paying jobs. We're not connecting it to access to affordable housing, to environmental sustainability, and we need to be doing a better job of connecting those issues as a party and as a country. Every major region in our country is wrestling with those issues. Every major region does not have enough good-paying jobs. Here in the Denver metro area, where our jobs are expected to grow, 8 out of 10 of the fastest growing occupations here pay $10 an hour or less. That is not sustainable, and I think that what we need to be talking about is how unionization can be a part of the solution. We need to elect a... We need to elect a president and a Congress that will pass the Employee Free Choice Act within the first 100 days, giving every worker in this country restoring their right to form a union and collectively bargain for better wages and benefits. That has been one of the best anti-poverty solutions that this country has seen, and we need a renaissance. We need a new kind of labor movement, a labor movement that is uniting people of all different incomes around the need for creating better jobs, but also a labor movement that is talking about healthcare, affordable housing, and environmental sustainability, and partnering with all of those organizations on the ground and at the national level to make those things happen. So I would say that what we should be talking about, and I know that Senator Clinton mentioned it last night, that one of the best opportunities that we have to good middle-class jobs here in this country is to be doing more unionization. And I think that as we as a country wrestle with our energy independence on foreign oil, that looking for opportunities to be creating better paying, green collar jobs that truly are pathways out of poverty for many Americans and renew us as a country and make us less dependent on foreign oil is also a part of the solution. And so we need to be making that connection to jobs, and this week should be about finding the best solutions for how we're going to get more people into those good paying jobs.
Carmen Rhodes.
Can I just make, because I agree with everything that was just said, and I think that the future is in green-collar jobs. And I wish Al Gore was speaking at this convention to outline, a dramatic alternative on energy. But let me just inject a bit of caution here that we need to be wary of and make sure that our party doesn't, fall prey to this issue that somehow drilling is a solution. I'm getting a little bit nervous when I hear people say that, drill a little bit, we'll drill a little bit more, get more drilling. Let me tell you, drilling that's a 1950s solution to a 21st century problem. You know as well as I do, 10 years down the road, if we were drilling in Anwar or wherever, you save 2 cents on a gallon. I found 2 cents between the cushions of my couch last night. That didn't make me feel any better today, let me tell you. But we got to make sure that our party doesn't move to the right on that issue because somehow, they're worried about the polls. I think the American people get it. People want to be told the truth about energy independence and about the way we can create a whole new industrial revolution, as has just been outlined here in terms of green-collar jobs. But, let's make sure that our elected officials don't start using the word drilling as they talk about energy independence, because that's the wrong direction.
Now, I don't know much about the next speaker, except that we vacation with her at her family's home in Minocqua. And Lori Wallach is one of my best friends, but also, again, one of these people I'm in awe of. The best introduction for Lori Wallach, who heads Global Trade Watch with Public Citizen. Yes, it is worthy of applause. Is that in 1999, early in 1999, Lori Wallach found out that the World Trade Organization had decided to hold its ministerials in Seattle. And Lori Wallach was smart enough to say, wow, Seattle, they've got a really close, tight downtown there. If we organized and brought 30 or 40,000 trade unionists and thousands of kids who were willing to go into the street and protest, we might really be able to put these issues of global trade and global injustice on the front burner of the American political dialogue. And so Lori Wallach sent organizers into Seattle, started talking to unions and environmental groups and telling them to come to Seattle. Lori Wallach is the General Grant of the Battle of Seattle, the woman who forced the World Trade Organization to back down. Please welcome Lori Wallach here. And let me just, you are here in town with a movie, The Battle of Seattle, which you are promoting, in which we don't know, it's one of those really beautiful Hollywood stars is playing her, because she did not have time to do the role herself. But Lori, you're at this convention, you've read the platform, you were involved in the platform fights, and you've been involved in this all along. How's the Democratic Party doing at getting its head wrapped around these trade and economic justice issues that you've been trying to tell them for a decade are at the core of the American discourse?
Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. Thank you for that totally exaggerated but lovely introduction. And you know, the Battle of Seattle in '99 happened because lots of folks here, I am sure, looking around, early on saw that that was one of those moments where the course of history could be changed. Where despite overwhelming powers against us, there are those moments where taking action can make a tremendous difference. And we're at one of those moments now, and it's horrifying to think of what happens if we don't succeed. Horrifying. But I want to say that that moment doesn't end on election day, God willing, that Obama is president. Ladies and gentlemen, before I answer that platform question, I just want to say these words in these hallowed grounds. The Lula lesson. The Lula lesson. What the heck does that mean? President Lula of Brazil was the John Sweeney of Brazil. He was the head of their labor federation. People busted their butts for decades to get him elected. And then right afterwards, most of the folks who'd be right here, if we were in Brazil, we'd all be those people. They went into the government, or they went home and said, thank God we did it. Change has just happened. But ladies and gentlemen, change doesn't happen with one person. Now it is the case that the knuckle-dragging, boneheaded, greed-headed thieves who are now in the White House need to be removed, and we can't take 4 more years of that. But the way to think about that is obstacle removal operation. So obstacle removal operation is step A, and step B, between now and the election day in November, is doing all the work we can, which gets to the platform, to put leaders with hope and vision and some commonality in our sense of goals and spirit in that position of power. But once they're there, we all know the steering wheel's sitting there, and every big fat cat in Washington, every corporation, every PAC, with all their oodles of money and all their entrenched power, are going to be sitting in there trying to snatch up the direction. Even if we got someone who is not a bonehead, greenhead knuckle dragger, they're going to want to grab the steering wheel. And so our big piece of work is to get ourselves really active now, but even equally as more active the day after, please God, President Obama is elected. And that is the Lula lesson, because what happened in Brazil is a tragedy that we cannot go through here. Because Lula was elected, folks did not in the social movements keep pushing him. There was no outside pressure. There was pressure from the business guys. They had him by the neck. And they got pushed and pushed and pushed, and the middle became so far right that the old president, Cardozo, the right-winger that Lula beat, he was starting to look like paradise relative to some of the knuckle-dragging things on labor unions, on the way that the tax system is running, on the benefits for corporations. So let us not leave here without the Lula lesson. On the platform, on the platform. So this is the good news, bad news story. And this gets back to the Lula lesson. The good news is people busted their butts from the primary beginnings right through this platform being drafted, and as a result, not because it came from God, not because they changed their mind at the head of the Democratic Party, because folks like everyone here in the labor movement cranked on the ground, candidate by candidate, for bird dogging operations that were done during the primary. And I want to recommend the Citizens Trade Campaign website, because there are written questionnaires answering really tough questions on trade and globalization. They pinned down, we had the Iowa Fair Trade Campaign going starting in 6 months before Iowa. We got all the candidates, including now nominee Obama, on paper, making firm commitments. When they were in the great national NAFTA off, the commitments kept being jacked up.
Can I interrupt here and say that they didn't just get it on paper. They required that the candidates sign their statements in their own hand so that they could never say, oh, some aide wrote that.
There was the 1992 comeuppance of having done similar things and then having it rolled up and shoved up our noses. So we were very careful about it this time. So on paper are all these commitments, and guess what happened? So Obama's on paper. Where his head is on this, he's not so focused, and the people around him go into the knuckle-dragging camp, sadly. But he's now on paper responding to all of you, all over the damn country, state by state, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Texas, Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, saying the right stuff. So guess what happened at the platform? Citizens Trade Campaign organized all those folks who got in those commitments, labor presidents, Sierra Club presidents, religious leaders, faith leaders, activists, to go to the platform and come back with Senator Obama's own language. That platform now is a language that was grassroots organized out of him, his own language, because what first draft came out, blech. So we just wrote the whole thing. It's just clips from his own statements. We just put the grammar into it, took his statement, put an and in there, put a verb in there, put all of his stuff in blue. What are you going to do? It's on paper. And about 80% of that got adopted, which is wonderful. It's the best democratic platform. It's the best democratic platform on trade that's ever been on paper. It's 80% there. There are some hitches, but there's some great stuff in there. But here's the thing. If it's on paper, it's not enough. To get it on paper took a lot of butt busting. And to get it translated into policy is going to take a lot more. And this gets to the movie, if I can just have one more minute, which is, so there are 3 things for everyone to come out of here to do for the day after the election. But there's one thing to do before the election, which is, we're going to have to build up more demand, or more people fighting on these issues, feeling empowered to actually grab the steering wheel so all the special interests don't. And one of the best tools that we have for that is this wonderful new film that's coming out called Battle in Seattle. So this is a full feature film that tells our story of speaking truth to power and winning and taking down the WTO expansion against all those corporations. It's coming out September 19th in New York, Seattle, and San Francisco. And then on the 26th in DC, and Boston, and Chicago, and Detroit, and Pittsburgh, some other places. And this film is a full drama. It's not a documentary. It has amazing stars and actors who made this film for not much. They didn't get paid a lot. They wanted the story to be told. So Woody Harrelson, Charlize Theron, Ray Liotta, Michelle Rodriguez from Lost, Andre 3000 from Outkast, Tatum Channing. I mean, it's like there's a star in here who everyone who does not already know about trade and globalization would love. Plus, it's written really well. So it's a totally compelling story. But it's got that really subversive, accidental learning phenomenon, which is you go in to look at, pick your star, or because it's just a great story, and holy beans, you walk out and you say, the WTO, I may not still know exactly what it is, but it's bad, and I'm going to learn more about it, and by the way, look at that, protest is fun, and they win. And it's a great tool to get another whole generation of activists turned onto that Seattle spirit that got so crushed by 9/11. Plus, for all of us who've been like in the trenches for 8 years of, I would say a word that I can't say in a church, this is a great refresher. This is a spirit lifter. This is like a way to go and you come out and you want to kick butt and take names and win. It's a reminder of what we do when we win. And it's just a kick-ass, movie. And I would like to just recognize Stuart Townsend, who's the director and the author of the film.
Stuart Townsend.
Who spent 6 years of his life making sure this happened. So here's the thing. He did his part, and now we all need to do our part. This is an organizing thing. So surprise, surprise, Hollywood did not want this film made, and then once he made it and it got rave reviews, it's a great film. I've seen it. It's great. They would not get a single big company to distribute it. So it's being distributed in those original 12 cities. If it does well in those 12 cities, it goes nationwide. Our story's in 800 theaters. The whole country gets turned on to what activism can do and how wonderful and joyous it is to be part of a movement. Otherwise, it goes to DVD. So, in 1999, the email was, take to the streets. If you want to be part of the second Seattle surprise, where we're going to kick big Hollywood in the butt and get the movie out, it is called Take to the Seats. Go to a theater. And so here's what I have for everybody. I have organizing kits. It explains in those cities who to call. We can get discount tickets if you get 25 seats or more. So you can do a whole like SEIU day at the movie, or Peace and Justice Club at the movies, Sierra Club at the movies. You can buy out a whole theater for about $1,200 in most cities. Who knew? At the discount rate. So you can do your own thing, plus you can stage a theater takeover. How do you do that? There's a gadget on the website of this film that lets you demand the film come to your town. So if you click demand it, like folks in Madison are, John's involved in this, 200 people click it, you actually organize a showing in your town. So it actually helps the release. It's an activist release of a film. Just like people made Seattle happen the first time, people can make the magic of this film get nationwide. So please see me for a packet. There are a lot of other materials. I have big bags of cards that you can take to other events you're going to.
You'll get
and
a chance.
That's it.
If you want to know how to be an organizer, Lori Wallach, right there. Fabulous.
You mentioned trade. Here's an action item that I think people need to do immediately. Congress comes back into session in a couple of weeks. there is a renewed effort to try to pass a trade agreement with Colombia that is a bad idea. It is a bad idea. Colombia is the most dangerous place in the world to be a unionist, and they are trying to get this thing through before Congress adjourns. Call your representative, call your senator, say, make sure you vote no on the Colombia Free Trade Agreement. This is not the right thing to do. This is not the time. It would be a great disservice to the workers in Colombia. I've been there many times. I've seen what's gone on. It is a bad idea.
And Lori Wallach will tell you how to beat that. Jim McGovern, how scared are you when Lori Wallach calls you if she's mad? If Lori Wallach ever calls you and she's mad, are you scared?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Let me ask you a question, Congressman. You spoke earlier about a New Deal and this big picture notion. And so much of that is domestic policy programs. We're going to put people to work, do things of that nature. But now in a globalized economy, doesn't that become a much more complex initiative? We can say the term a New Deal, but doesn't it become much more difficult when we have so many of these trade deals, when we have so many of these challenges to make it work? And how do you modernize the New Deal, bring it up 65, 70 years so that we can sell it to folks and have them believe in it today? Well,
clearly, we live in a global economy. I mean, we are, because of communications, because of trade, we're all much more kind of intertwined with each other. But part of that kind of new deal, that new approach to world affairs, I think needs to focus on things like human rights and dignity for every single worker in this country and around the world. I mean, if human rights really was the centerpiece of our approach to everything, domestic policy and international policy, what a different world it would be. I have no problem with trading with other countries. I do have a problem when we have trade policies that beat down people, that basically institutionalize murderous behavior in some countries, that explain away human rights atrocities. I mean, trade agreements, I mean, in my mind, and I'm hoping in Obama's mind and in the new Congress's minds, is going to be something that provides and creates opportunities in the United States to create new jobs, but also creates new opportunities in other countries. I mean, the rationale is you want to lift up everybody. You want to lift up people in Colombia just like you want to lift up people in the United States. You lift up people in Colombia, guess what? They can buy more. They'll be doing more. I mean, they'll actually be helping contribute in a positive way to the global economy. We should be talking about a universal minimum or fair wage standard all over the world. Now, not every country can immediately go to our minimum wage, which quite frankly is too low, and if you want to combat poverty and hunger, we need to get it up. But the bottom line is there should be a standard. There should be a standard that helps lift up all workers, that helps create new opportunities. And so we need a whole new discussion. It can't be the same old, same old. It can't be, we send a trade representative, to work with the same old people that have the same old alliances with the same old corporations, and they produce something, and then we throw a few riders onto the trade agreement that have no force of law, that are just kind of our intentions that we will not murder union workers, or that we will,
not on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
It is our hope. It is our hope that you won't, that you will respect the environment. Look, I mean, we have an opportunity to create a different world, a different country and a different world, and we can become a global leader for good. I mean, I also co-chair. I just was appointed the co-chair of the Human Rights Caucus, replacing Tom Lantos. And I'm going to tell you something. We have lost our moral authority on that issue. I mean, what has happened in Guantanamo, what has happened all over the world in terms of our embrace of torture, our indifference to people who are being killed. I mean, we continue to do business with governments and trade with governments and pose for photo ops with leaders that kill people for organizing unions in their own country. I mean, we need to be a country that stands foursquare and out loud for human rights, for our workers, for our people in this country, and for people all over this world. We do that. If that's the basis of this new discussion, boy, I mean, things are going to change dramatically. If it's the same old, and I agree about one thing. Look at, I'm a politician. Politicians, very rarely do you find a politician who will come out and say, I favor, hunger, or I favor, exploiting workers all around the world. People always kind of talk the talk. We got to make sure they walk the walk. And look, people are not all perfect. Politicians are not perfect. I've met a perfect politician once in my life.
Your wife was mentioning something about that.
No, she will tell you how imperfect I am. I met a perfect politician once in my life, and that's when I first ran for Congress. I served 2 years, and guess what? I wasn't so perfect anymore, but I voted for me anyway for re-election because I was better than the guy that ran against me. But the bottom line is, people aren't perfect. And sometimes, it's tough to when you get elected, to stand up to all the forces to do what you promised. That's where you all come in. That's why PDA comes in. There's lots of money. There are a lot of lobbyists that do bad things. But I'm going to tell you something. People power is more powerful than money. It really is. If you get 100 people that show up to a congressman's office or congresswoman's office to talk about a trade agreement, to talk about expanding food stamps, to talk about whatever it is, I'm going to tell you, that resonates. What has happened in this country is people have gotten complacent, indifferent, or they think they don't matter. They do matter. But grassroots organizing, old-fashioned, lobbying by the people, that makes a huge difference. If we're going to end this war in Iraq, finally, it's going to end because people have forced politicians to end the war. People who voted for the war have changed their positions. They've changed their positions because they listen to you. You've been in their offices protesting, saying, if you don't change your position, we're going to work against you. You're out. Tough love. That's what has to happen. And so I'm optimistic. People are thinking big thoughts and good things for the first time in a long time, and they're not afraid to think boldly. Let's encourage that. Let's keep on pushing that wave. And I really do think the stuff that has been talked about here today can be changed for the better.
Just on
McGovern.
Just on the New Deal question, there's an interesting organizing opportunity to help people think about this in this different frame. And this sort of gets to also the platform question, which is, the platform says they're going to committing to renegotiate NAFTA, and they serve a little wiggle room on WTO, but that's what the candidates have been saying. And so here's the thing. To get the New Deal, we need to get the WTO and NAFTA out of the way. And so some of the organizing materials I brought, so what's everyone talking about? Green jobs, and a lot of that has to do with government procurement. Is the government going to spend our tax dollars to revitalize our infrastructure, et cetera? And then everyone's talking about health care. And so for folks who aren't hip to how the current globalization agreements are really sort of corporate Trojan horses that sneak in and grab other stuff, like our health care and, say, food, I have 2 fact sheets and a study for those who want to be the trainers of the trainers. We looked at the actual proposals that Obama and Clinton had on green jobs and climate change and on health care. And we went through the WTO and NAFTA, and we found all the provisions that conflict. So ladies and gentlemen, just to do the principal domestic goals, health care and climate, that everyone who's a Democrat knows about. If they don't know WTO and they still think it's a call radio station, then they know health care and they know climate. And this will train you how to talk about how just to do those things that are essential to the future of the country and the world, we have to change these instruments, because again, trade can be right. The problem is we have these corporate, race to the bottom, horrible trade agreements that have all this non-trade, anti-healthcare, anti-environment, anti-labor stuff. And so then also fact sheets to be copied. Wrong prescription for health care explains exactly how the WTO rules limit health insurance reform, risk pooling, lots of things that are right in the core, to say nothing of single payer, totally WTO legal, pharmaceutical price fixes. And then on climate, this lays out not just all the green jobs problems, but also all the issues the Congressman was talking about how under the trade agreements, you can't have the same human rights, for instance, the anti-apartheid procurement conditionalities, the key tool that let American cities and states help in South Africa's anti-apartheid fight, are now forbidden under the WTO. They don't let you decide what to do with your own damn tax dollars. Nothing to do with trade, if they were about trade. So the sort of piece of business to help people think about this new frame of what really is a human rights-based New Deal involves dragging them into doing what's in the platform and holding the politicians accountable to creating that space. And so if you go to the website for the film, which is battleinseattlemovie.com, there's a link to a thing called the Trade Act. The Trade Act. The Trade Act was introduced by Sherrod Brown and Mike Michaud. It has 100 sponsors. So battleinseattlemovie.com, go to the screen on the Trade Act, and the congressman's a co-sponsor. This is a great congressman.
Yeah, he was very relieved by those words.
And it's the tool to fix NAFTA and WTO to allow the policy space. It's a proactive what we're for thing, and so that we can actually make the space for the kind of changes.
And that's, what Lori's talking about there is absolutely essential, because Barack Obama will be as good a president as you decide. Activists and progressive members of Congress, he will be as good as you make him be. And that Trade Act is, in my opinion, after ending the war, because that, amazingly enough, ending a war frees up some bucks, that Trade Act is the essential tool to making Barack Obama be the president who actually does change we can believe in rather than change Wall Street can believe in. Let's take Carmen in here. Carmen, isn't this whole green jobs thing just some kind of fantasy? You know, I mean, it sounds so great, right? We closed all the factories, shipped all the jobs to Mexico and then to China, and oh, now you can get your job back making windmills.
Well, I'll tell you that it is a very easy concept to grasp, and every national leader is talking about it, but I will tell you that speaking from the grassroots perspective, it is very difficult to implement this concept on the ground. And I think we need to be very clear. Good green jobs will not just happen. It's not just a given that as these new technologies are being developed, new manufacturing plants are popping up, that those will be good jobs.
Or even that they'll be in America.
Exactly, or even that they'll be in America. And so we must be vigilant as people on the ground in looking at every local deal that's being made. Are there subsidies going from our government to attract new jobs here? What are the standards that are going into those deals that ensure that those are going to be good jobs with benefits? Same thing at the state level. Our states are competing with each other, bending over backwards to out-incentivize luring these green businesses to our states. And the reality is that, yes, we want them to be here. We want to be environmentally sustainable. We want to be energy independent. But we can't kid ourselves that it's just a given that those are going to be good jobs. We need to be partnering with local unions and apprenticeship programs on the ground to ensure that there are real and legitimate pathways that are being built out of communities that are most in need of those jobs and into those jobs. We need to be educating our elected leaders about the kinds of policies that they can be linking to the subsidies that they're giving to those businesses and ensuring that those are good jobs. We need to make sure that they're good corporate citizens in other places and make sure that they're not doing something in another place that's damaging. So I think that the rhetoric is so beautiful, and it is definitely the buzzword, and it is exciting to think that we can rebuild America's middle class on these jobs, but I think we can't just sit back and think that that's going to happen. And so if there's one thing that I can just convey urgency around, it is that one of the first things that will get dropped from this equation, because there's a lot of money to be made around these new green technologies. There is a lot of money to be made from the business sector. Certainly our environmental partners are they're passing policies that are making that are creating incentives and that are making it easier for us to do these. But the one piece that's missing is that labor piece. And we have to actively look for ways to insert labor standards into those deals if we want to make sure that those are going to be good green-collar jobs at all levels of government.
Carmen Rhodes. Now stick with that. I would stick with Carmen for 1 sec. Democrats used to, I am so old that I remember when Democrats talked about something called industrial policy, i.e. a national plan for how you would do development in a way that didn't have states whipsawing each other and competing with each other for jobs, and that had sort of national standards. It sounds to me, as you're talking about this, with that competition between states, that if we're to have a green jobs initiative, we have to have some sort of industrial policy. There has to be a national green industrial policy or something like that. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there needs to be much more coordination and planning. I think that we need to be thinking about more revenue sharing plans. We need to be getting more creative so that we're not put in a position where the good jobs are either in Colorado or they're in Kansas. We need to be figuring out how all Americans are benefiting from this green jobs revolution. And one thing, well, I'll wait to share this, but I think that you are absolutely right. And if this becomes a competition between the states over getting these companies in, it will become a race to the bottom very quickly.
I'm hoping that this new Congress, with this new president, in the first 100 days of the new administration, can pass, an infrastructure improvement bill to rebuild our roads and our bridges and our water filtration plants and our sewer facilities. We have an aging infrastructure in this country. Let's rebuild it. I mean, let's create the best railway system in the world in the United States of America. And if we do that, if we do that, you're going to create jobs immediately. Good-paying jobs. These construction jobs, these infrastructure jobs, they can help get this economy back on the right track. In Massachusetts, where I'm from, we have bridges that are older than some of your states, and they're falling apart. And we don't have the money to fix them because it's expensive. We need federal assistance, direct aid, to kind of to do that. A good new, strong infrastructure is also helps create opportunities for more investment. So there's a whole bunch of things we can do, but you're absolutely right. Part of this New Deal should be a major infrastructure improvement bill, a major public works bill that we pass that can help every single state in this country put people back to work.
Hey. Jim McGovern, you have to leave, I'm afraid, pretty quickly, because you actually have to, if I'm correct on this, be a part of choosing a nominee for president.
They're doing it in a different way this year, where you have to fill out a form in advance. So I don't know how. But anyway, I do have to go to another thing.
They are telling you that. Yeah. Before I let you go, I want you to, we're talking about all this great New Deal stuff, and we're going to keep talking for a couple more minutes here, but we're talking about all this great New Deal stuff. You've been kind of a central player in PDA's anti-war initiatives. Link it up for a second. The amount of expense for a military-industrial complex versus doing all these wonderful things we talk about.
Yeah, we have to end this war in Iraq because it's bankrupting us. I mean, plain and simple. I mean, it's a mistake. We shouldn't be there. It is a tragic loss of human life, American soldiers and Iraqi civilians who are being killed. And I'll be honest with you, I'm also nervous about the way we're conducting the war in Afghanistan right now too. We're bombing all over the place, and and the civilian casualties are rising. Look, I have no problem with taking on the Taliban and Al-Qaeda, but the way we're doing it, I think is going to have the opposite impact. We're going to create more sympathy for the bad guys because of the civilian casualties. Look, we can't afford to do what we're doing right now with this war. And we also need a discussion on our military budget. I mean, we have weapon systems that get funded every single damn year that even the Joint Chiefs of Staff don't want. Why the hell can't we end wasteful military spending? I mean, there are weapon systems that we don't need. Period. There are weapon systems, quite frankly, even for the Dr. Strangeloves in the Pentagon, they don't have any practical use anymore. I mean, they're obsolete. for warfare, yet we're still funding them. It is dumb what we're doing, and we need to have an honest discussion. And we need, as Democrats and as progressives, we need to have the confidence to be able to have that discussion and not be afraid that we're going to be painted as, oh, soft on defending the country. Look, I want a military second to none, but I don't believe in wasteful spending, you know, whether it's in domestic programs or military programs. Let's take the money that we're spending on all these wasteful military expenditures and reinvest it in our economy. Because I want to tell you, we need a new definition of national security in this country. It is not just about the number of bombs we have or the number of bases we have. It is about the quality of health care we offer all of our people. It is about the education we give to our kids. It is about a strong economy, good paying jobs. It is about a clean environment. I don't want to die from ingesting dirty air or ingesting dirty water. I mean, it needs to be expanded, and we need to help encourage that discussion. Let me just say one final thing, and why all the things all of us here have one. We're all encouraging more and more action. That's kind of the, I mean, that's kind of the common theme, I'm sure, of all the different panelists. An old history professor once said, "The world will not get better on its own." And I had no idea what the hell he was talking about when he was saying that over and over and over. The older I get, the more I appreciate that. Nothing good has happened in this world without the organized efforts of like-minded people coming together and demanding change. The strides we've made in civil rights, the strides we've made in terms of things like Social Security and Medicare, and you know, and aid, you know, to clean up our environment, and this whole effort around global warming. These things aren't just happening on their own. They're happening because there's a grassroots movement that is demanding change. And you know, I think people need to understand nothing changes simply because you elect somebody. I mean, let me rephrase that. You know, what you do is you create an opportunity when you elect somebody. We all then have to make sure that the people we elect actually do what they say. And I know that's a radical idea, but it's what needs to happen. And so look, I am hopeful for the first time in a long time. I mean, I'm actually thinking that maybe, you know, we have this opportunity where we can create a better world for my kids. I mean, and I'll be honest with you, being with Bush for 8 years, I mean, I've had to up my medication a lot to be able to deal with him. I mean, it's been horrible. It has been horrible. This is the worst president in the history of the country. And, you know, and I'll just say in closing too, we're all talking about what happens when Barack Obama becomes president. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm worried about what happens between now and the time George Bush leaves. And I'm worried about a war in Iran, and I'm worried about some of the other things he's going to try to do to take away your civil liberties and your civil rights. So we have to multitask here. We got to work for Obama, we got to work for progressive candidates, but we have to make sure that we keep a strong check on this president. You know, he still has enough time to do a lot more damage. And so, anyway, I thank you very much for all the great work, and I feel privileged to be here.
Jim McGovern. So we're going to keep these other panelists here for a couple more minutes, but Congressman Jim McGovern.